Hi everyone, welcome back to my next video. Now there's something a little bit different about this shot. If you've been following my channel for a while, you'll be looking at this and think, what's different? Something's wrong. Has Bob shrunk? Yeah, Bob probably has shrunk some more, but I don't think you could notice. Has Bob wearing new clothes? No, you've probably seen all these clothes before. Now what is different is the ambulance is green. And of course, it's never been green before. It was a red ambulance when I bought it, and now it is a green ambulance. How did that happen? So today's video is about how I changed the colors on the ambulance and the story behind that. So one of your first questions is, why didn't I just leave it red? That was probably a lot of money. It was a lot of money. And I'll tell you here in a minute how much it was. And um, so why didn't you just leave it red? Well, I'm a pretty private person. I know here I am standing in front of you talking to lots of people out there, and I seem to like a lot of attention and a lot of people around me, but that really is not true. That is a stretch for me. That is not who I am naturally. Naturally, I'm a very private person, and so driving around in a bright red ambulance, parking out in the back country with a bright red ambulance just does not fit my personality, as odd as that seems. And so I wanted a very toned down color. So that's mainly why I wrapped it and why I chose this color. Very unobtrusive, very unnoticeable. Now, the next question you're going to ask is, why a wrap? Why not get it painted? Well, my first choice was something called Line X. If you know what Line X is, if you've ever seen a pickup and they do a spray-in bed liner on the inside of pickups, sometimes they'll do it under the undercarriage to prevent corrosion and rust. It's incredible stuff. I mean, you could take a hammer and beat this and it won't even notice. So my first hope was just to Line X the entire vehicle. I've seen some ambulances on YouTube where they did that, and they look fantastic and as tough as nails. It will last forever. That was my first choice. So as I'm shooting this, it's September 9th, 2021, and I got this done in August. So in August, I went to the Line X dealer and he said they were having a hard time getting parts and supplies, and he didn't know when he could do it. It would be at least a 3-month wait. It would be $10,000 for this ambulance. And I could probably live with the 10,000. You do it once, it's done forever, the rest of your life. I mean, it really is that good. And it won't break, it'll protect the paint, it'll protect this, just wonderful stuff. But he couldn't do it till the very end of the summer. It would cost $10,000, and he said he would need the ambulance for 30 days, a whole month. Well, I can't give up the ambulance for a month. I can't comprehend that. How could he have this in a bay for 30 days? He can't have enough bays. But that's what he told me, and he swore that was the only way it was going to happen, and I knew that wasn't going to work. So I gave up on my first choice, which was Line X. The next thing you're going to naturally think of is a paint job. Well, I think a paint job would be just as much. And I'm not confident in the quality of aftermarket paint jobs. I mean, if you go to the very best guy in the very best city, maybe they'll look good and last a long time. But, I don't have that kind of money to spend. I don't have that kind of time. I'm just not confident in a paint job. If you know anything about these Chevys, they come out of the factory, and I've seen this in a lot of Fords too. They'll start to fade and peel, especially the Chevys. Chevys are famous for peeling paint. The white vans, you almost never see anymore a white van without some peeling paint somewhere on it. And so if the factory can't get it right, how's this an aftermarket guy? I just didn't have enough confidence in a paint job to want to do a paint job. Well, that left a wrap. So let me tell you the advantages, and let me tell you the price. You're going to wonder how much it was. This was $4,500, just the way you're looking at it. I gave him $4,500. He put the wrap on, and I drove it away. Um, and how long will it last? Well, they should last 4 to 5 years. That's what I've always heard. That's what he said. Everything I've ever heard said 4 to 5 years. So that doesn't seem like very long, and you're right, it's not. If you spend $4,500, you get 4.5 years out of it. That's $1,000 a year. Well, I can live with that. It has numerous advantages as a wrap. The first is that it's repairable. In other words, if tomorrow I drive down a forest road and get a big scratch on it, you can actually just peel that one off and put a new one on. And it'll match exactly. Now, if it's 5 years later, maybe it would have faded. I don't know. I just don't know that much about it. But otherwise, it'll match exactly. You never have a problem replacing a piece of it and matching it. And so that is, to me, a big advantage. They also say that it protects the paint, and so when you do take it off, and changing the color in 4 or 5 years isn't a bad idea to me. I like that idea. When you do peel it off, you can peel it off at any time. It should have protected the paint. The factory paint should be exactly the way you left it in, not faded, not oxidized. It should protect the paint, just like being covered would protect it. I have heard by looking it up on both Google and YouTube that there are people that when they peeled it off, it had damaged the paint, and so that's a possibility. But by then, I would just either rewrap it or line X it. Maybe by then I can get a line X done. So those were all the options, and of those options, I chose the wrap because it was fast. This thing took 2 days to get wrapped. That's really fast. I live in it, so I can't give it up for very long. That's one of the reasons I loved it. Now, here's what I would do if I had it to do all over again. After I've studied everything and learned everything, I would do a do-it-yourself line X. I've done some research. Some of the do-it-yourself, they just come in spray cans. You just spray it on. And if you're even halfway talented and diligent, you can make it look really good because it just sprays on and sticks. And from what I've heard, it's great stuff and works just as well. But I'm very happy with this. I think they did a great job. I did it in Oregon, and I did this at Southern Oregon Sign in Medford, Oregon. I think they did a great job. I'm very happy with it. And one of the reasons I chose Southern Oregon in Medford, they had great reviews online, of course, and I went in and talked to them. They seemed like really good people. But it was within walking distance of my sister's house, so I could just drop it off and walk home. That was handy. And of course, in Oregon, there's no tax, so I didn't pay any tax, which would have been probably a substantial amount of money on $4,500. So I was glad to pay no tax. I'm really happy with them, and at this point, I would highly recommend them to do a wrap if you needed a wrap or a sign or anything else. They were good people. It was a family. His kids were running around helping him do the wrap, and I was impressed. Good people. So when you go in, there are multiple different kinds of wrap. The two big ones, two big manufacturers that make wrap are Avery and 3M. Now 3M is a fantastic company and make great products. This guy sold Avery, and so this is an Avery vinyl. He said he's been doing it for a long time and with a lot of big companies and multiple jobs for big companies, and they've all been very, very happy. So this is an Avery, although 3M might be a little better, but this is Avery and probably costs a little less. I'm very happy with the wrap. So the next question you might have is, how did I choose the color? And I'll be honest with you, my first choice was Desert Tan because I think it's a little lighter and might not show dirt quite as much. That was my first choice, but I could not find a Desert Tan that I liked. But they had actually had this in stock. They didn't have enough. They had to order some more, but this was in stock. I could see it. I could hold it in my hand. They show you swatches, and you can't really tell from a swatch what exactly the final color will look. But I took this outside and held it up, and I really like this color. So what color is this? Well, my friends have different descriptions for this color. I have friends that call it baby poop green. And you know what? It kind of looks like baby poop green. I am pretty intimately familiar with baby poop. In my past years, I've handled a lot of baby poop, and yeah, it kind of looks like baby poop green. Another color I've heard it called is pea soup green. And that's a good one. At least it's not baby poop. So yeah, I like the color. To me, if I were to describe this color, I would call it puke green. So but my other friend said, well, it really looks like sage green. And so that's better than baby poop or puke. So I'm describing this as sage green. And I think that's really accurate. I think that describes it. In fact, I'm parked in sage all the time, and it really does blend in very well. I'm very happy with this color. I guess the best way to describe it is a light olive drab. It looks military. It looks Forest Service-y. And I think that if I'm driving this thing down the road and people are looking, that's the main thing they're going to think. They're going to think military or Forest Service. So ultimately, my biggest question is, I drive down right here where I'm at, the roads are really narrow, and I've got sagebrush growing into them, and I drive down forest roads where the limbs, big 2-inch limbs hang out into the road and scrape it. Is it just going to tear it to pieces? And so I asked the guy that, and you know, what could he say? He said, you know what, it's a sticker. In Ultimately, it's a sticker. It's a very tough sticker. It should last you a long, long time. But all I can tell you is a sticker, and so that's what I have to remember. If I abuse it and it gets torn to pieces, it's on me. But again, my thinking is, and here's my ultimate thinking, if I tear it to pieces, I'm gonna go buy a spray can of brown and black paint and camo it. Every time I put a big rip in it, it's gonna have brown paint on it. The next one will be black paint on it, and before long, it'll be a really pretty camo. Like I planned it that way, right? So that's kind of what I have in mind. Or I could probably find a spray paint that would kind of match it if I worked really hard at it. And like I said, it's repairable. They can peel that off and put a new piece on. And you don't do that so well with paint, you know, the blending and get the exact color. The next color will be exactly like that. So those are all the reasons why I got a wrap and why I chose it. Now let me take you around and show you some of the details. It's not perfect. I wanted to spend the minimum amount of money. And so I told them up front, you know, I just want it to look good on the outside. I don't want to have all the details perfect. Getting details perfect costs a lot more money because it costs a lot more time. So you'll see that kind of might have come back and bit me in the butt, decision you'll have to make if you ever choose to wrap. But I'll show you some of the areas where they would have done more detail had I wanted them to do it. Another reason this costs so much is it's very big. I mean, just look at the walls on this thing. It's got it's got all these big walls. It's got a regular pickup front end. So it's very big. It took a lot of material. And so that cost more because the material is expensive. It's also a lot of detail work. I mean, very few vehicles they will ever do will have all these little cutouts. Everything has to be cut out very finely with a razor blade to get around it. They couldn't just pull everything off. Well, they could have. They could have just pulled everything off. It would have taken a couple of days to pull everything off and put it all back on. So, and I didn't want to spend that extra money. And they could have and they would have, but I didn't want to spend the extra money. That was one of the reasons the Line X was going to be $10,000. They would have pulled everything off. Every door would have been removed. It would have been really, really perfect. But I don't want to spend the extra money for that. So bear that in mind. I chose to go the cheap route. And if there are imperfections, it's because I went the cheap route, not because they did a bad job. All right, let's take a look. Okay, let's take a look at some of the details on the ambulance here of their workmanship. I think overall I'm very pleased with it. So let's start here. One of the things he warned me about was that they were going to have a real hard time getting in between, which you can see why. It's very narrow. But they got all the way back. I don't know how they got someone with that short of an arm to get in there, but you know, that's almost all the way in. So I was actually very, very pleased with that they were able to get in there so well. And most of it is quite good. Here you can see the red in between there. But again, I asked them to charge me the minimum. And so charging me the minimum means they did not wrap the inside of the door. So here's the door. And it's not wrapped. They would, but I would have had to paid more, and I just didn't want to do that. But here's some fine workmanship here. Let's take a look at it. You know, for the most part, it's real good. So they just had to cut along this here. You can see that's not perfect. There's just a little bit of, and you're real close. You're looking at a real close up of that. So you can see it's fairly noticeable here. This is really enlarged. This is by the camera. I've got a macro lens here. And then it stops. Whoever had the razor blade did a better job here than there. And then it starts again. A little bit of red there. But that's okay. I think that's fine. Here on this hinge, on this door, it looks good. Not perfect, but pretty darn good. So all in all, I think I'm really pleased. Of course, they didn't do the wheels. You don't do wheels with a wrap, so I will probably come around with the black and black spray paint. Spray paint those black. Quite good. I don't see any. This pillar is very, very strong. Nothing on there that I thought would be the slightest problem. A little bit of issue here. Let me see if I can get you in there. You can see a little bit of red around the door knob. So these things I'm going to have to paint. I'll get black spray paint. Spray paint that. Spray paint that. This door was open, you know. So they didn't get the inside. I asked them not to. They would have. This was quite substantial amount of red here. Let's see. You can see there. And I guess that was just the way it had to be. It's a little bit unusual. But overall, all in all, I think they did a great job. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend them. I don't have anything to compare it to. I've never seen anyone else's work. Is this good work or bad work? Or I just don't know. I don't have a clue. But I'm pretty happy with it. Well, there you go, folks. That's the story of the ambulance, how I did the wrap, why and where and how much and all the details I thought you might need. Is it for you? Well, it would be a lot less if you got a minivan or a car or an SUV. You wouldn't be nearly as expensive as this, maybe half the price. You got half the vehicle. You get the protection, the 4 to 5 years that it'll last. You can take it off then and redo it. And if you're only paying a couple grand, which is, I think, for a smaller car, it's probably about in the ballpark of what you're looking at. Maybe it's something for you to consider. Only you will know. Well, I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, like us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up button, and we'll talk to you later.